Today, President Trump is traveling to the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland, and his major push will be to acquire the island nation of Greenland. And it's set to dominate talks with world leaders. He calls the United States' control of the Arctic island, currently part of Denmark, imperative for national and world security. And some NATO allies are not on board with this. I'm Harris Faulkner. You are in the Faulkner Focus. Greenland is a strategically critical location for the U.S. Of course, it sits in the middle of the arc known as the Great Circle of Distance, or the Great Circle Distance. That describes the shortest flight path between Russia and Washington, D.C. If Russia or China were to fire intercontinental ballistic missiles at the U.S., they would likely cross over Greenland. Most of Greenland's roughly 56,000 residents live in coastal towns in the southern part of the country, where the weather is still critically difficult, but a little bit more bearable. A few people live more remotely, and their lives are very different from the people who have structure and actually, quite frankly, salaries. The vast interior is largely uninhabited. The island also has a wealth of mostly untapped reserve of rare earth minerals, which could offer a critical counterweight to China and Russia. And of course, militarily, because of where it's situated. It would be good to have a bigger force there for the U.S. This map shows the location of Russian and NATO Arctic bases in the region. Russian ships and submarines headed south in the area pass through waters between Greenland, Iceland, and the U.K. and Norway. All of it in NATO territory, which provides vital defensive points for the alliance. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says acquiring Greenland now could save the U.S. from a future fight.
I think the president is worried that if there were an incursion into Greenland, the U.S. would be called upon to defend Greenland. Greenland's becoming more and more attractive for foreign conquest, and he very strongly believes that it must be part of the United States to prevent a conflict rather than getting the U.S. engaged in ex post into a hot conflict.
Former Army Special Operations Intelligence Analyst and drone expert Brett Velicovich is coming up in focus. I'll start with senior national correspondent Rich Edson, kicking off our coverage from the White House. Rich.
Good morning, Harris. President Trump is scheduled to leave today for Davos, where they are already talking about the U.S. push to acquire Greenland. The president says he spoke with the NATO Secretary General Mark Rutte about this and that, quote, I agreed to a meeting of the various parties in Davos, Switzerland, as I expressed to everyone very plainly, Greenland is imperative for national and world security. There can be no going back.
NATO's been warning Denmark for about 20 years now, longer than that, 25 years. They've been warning Denmark about the Russian threat. And it's not only Russia, it's also China. So we'll see what happens. But let's put it this way. It's going to be a very interesting Davos.
Denmark's leaders say they're willing to work with the U.S. on reinforcing Greenland's security and that they've sent more troops there to demonstrate they are serious about defending the island against any Russian or Chinese aggression. President Trump has threatened European countries with additional tariffs if they refuse to support him on this. The European Commission president says those tariffs would risk the trade deal she and the president agreed to last summer. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent advised European leaders to stay calm and not retaliate. France's president criticized the White House approach.
Competition from the United States of America with an endless accumulation of new tariffs that are fundamentally unacceptable, even more so when they are used as leverage against territorial sovereignty.
Macron's dealing with an eye issue there. Europeans have said a fight to take territory from an allied nation could put the entire NATO alliance at risk. The president did refuse to say whether the U.S. would use force to take over Greenland. Harris?
Thank you. Thank you, Rich. Appreciate the report. Get us started here. The president posted this before leaving for Davos. The United States is the most powerful nation on the globe. Much of the reason for this is a rebuilding of our military during my first term. We are the only power that can ensure peace throughout the world, and it is done, quite simply, through strength! Exclamation point. A new op-ed is arguing the U.S. must take Greenland, whatever the cost. And here's part of it. The White House is speaking loudly about Greenland, but volume should not be mistaken for madness. This isn't a sudden lapse into imperial fantasy. It is a power politics play dressed in modern language, but driven by old truths. The U.S. can either treat Greenland as a distant curiosity or as what it actually is, a forward position in a region that will define future power balances. Brett Velicovich, former Army Special Operations Intelligence Analyst and drone expert and Fox News contributor. Brett, talk to me about the military importance of Greenland for the U.S.
Well, Harris, first off, as Americans, we shouldn't apologize for defending our national interests. That goes not only for domestically along our borders, but globally, and especially when it comes to our security. Greenland isn't about real estate. It's about deterrence. It's about dominance of the Arctic gateway. And Trump rightfully understands that we need to secure that gateway before our adversaries lock it up. It's strategic defense. And as that ice starts to melt up there, Greenland becomes the high ground over everything from North Atlantic shipping lanes to missile trajectories, undersea cables, future energy routes. Russia and China already see it that way. And at a minimum, with all this controversial talk of Greenland, what our president has done is get our allies to understand the strategic importance of it, and that bodes well for American security in the long run. And let's be honest, none of this urgency to secure it existed before the U.S. started pressing the issue. The administration forced the conversation, they forced action, they forced allies to move faster, and that's actually proof that the administration has NATO doing what it hasn't done in decades, which is take real responsibility for strategic terrain. Greenland, it's not just some frozen water. It's a front line in great power competition with China and Russia. Right. And if the U.S. doesn't shape the security architecture there, China and Russia will.
Look, I want to mention this. It's those Diomedes Islands. You've got the little one that belongs to us and what's called the Big Diomede Island that's out in the middle of the Bering Strait. And why that's important. At one point, Russia and the U.S. are, about 55 miles apart? Like, we have to take these things seriously. And if the water were to stay frozen all year, which I don't know if it even does that anymore, you could literally walk into the United States at that point. So we want to be able to be first in anything that's happening in that part of the world, should there ever be any movement. That's my understanding of it. What's your take?
You're exactly right. In that whole area, it's become so pivotal for monitoring potential threats, missile defense, controlling critical maritime aerial approaches towards North America. We've maintained a military presence on Greenland for decades, mostly at a space base, which hosts advanced missile warning, space surveillance systems, which are critical and essential for early detection of threats on a global scale. So Greenland is really this perfect example of forward thinking from a defense strategy standpoint. We're not seeking conflict, but we're never going to outsource our security or apologize for protecting our people. And that goes into this importance also of rebuilding our military. It's about deterrence. It's not just about weapons, it's about credibility. And so the reason, frankly, that adversaries now are finally taking American red line serious is because we've got a strong military, which proven time and time again that it can execute. And we need to continue to project our military strength as a mechanism to prevent future wars. And I think understanding those islands up there and the significance of it is just part of that play.
Well, and the Bering Strait's not going anywhere. It's certainly not going to stay frozen the entire year, but it's something to keep our eye on, too, if it ever becomes crossable at times where literally Russia is that close. So strategically that way, but also what about the money? Like right now we have a strengthening economy here in the United States. We've got the cash if we needed to buy Greenland. We're very blessed in that. I asked my team to do this, to look at other acquisitions that we have made with this country historically, because I think this is important. In 1803, there was the Louisiana Purchase. Now, here's what's critical. The size of it, 828,000 square miles. That almost doubled what the Republic was at the time. The Mexican Cession in 1848 and the Alaska Purchase in 1867. Each of them smaller than what I just mentioned with Louisiana, both between 500 and 600,000 square miles. But look at Greenland, larger than any of them, 836,000 square miles, which would make it the largest acquisition in history. This would be gettable without use of the military. Experts are saying, like Scott Bessent, for instance, if we do this quickly. Your take?
Well, that would be the best case scenario if we could purchase it. Definitely. I mean, we need to project strength. If we can buy it, we absolutely should. That way, there's no military intervention. I think that wouldn't be the best scenario. So the fact is, if we can afford to buy it, we absolutely should, because it's critical for our national security in the long run.
So, Brett, why do other countries want to push against us doing this? Like, I get it with Denmark, but I don't get it with the rest of NATO. I mean, they have never paid their fair share until President Trump came along. Now they are, and it also requires a buy-in on something and being first in that part of the world strategically.
Yeah, well, that's the issue right now. I think our allies, all of a sudden see it as important, and it is important, and that's because the administration has forced a conversation. They forced the allies to actually take a look at this strategically, and so of course they're a bit upset about it right now. But the fact is, it's the administration has really pushed that, and in the long run, that only is going to be more successful and bode well for American security if everyone looks to protect this area from China and Russia and other threats.
Brett Velicovich, always great to have you in focus. Thank you.
Hey, everyone. I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.